not actually true. Because I was supposed to have one line, but it ended up going to a friend of Jack Nicholson's. So I was a glorified extra.
But you were on the set.
I was on the set
with John Huston.
With John Huston, who I think at that point was so old that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sort of amazing the career you've had and how recognizable you are and how much, like, I feel like I've known you since I was a kid. I feel like we grew up together somehow. Yeah. Like, there he is again, It's like
haunting me. Yeah.
But it's interesting. The kind of career that you have is a career of a guy that works.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like when you got into the racket, I mean, what was your plan? Did you think you were going to be doing primarily theater, or what were you thinking as an actor, or that you just wanted to do stuff?
I just wanted to work, and I really just wanted to work, doing it all. At the time when I started, so 1982, I got out of college, there was that very clear division between you're a theater actor, you're a television actor, you're a film actor. Mm-hmm. And it was an unfortunate division.
It was a snobbiness to it, right?
Yeah, it was weird. It was weird and wrong. Now, that has all disappeared, thank God. But, the British never did that. The British always went back and forth. You did TV,
right.
Sure. You did a play, you did a movie, then you went back and did the thing, blah, blah, blah. And you did a radio play. You just did it.
It's a smaller business there.
It's a smaller business, but it's a healthier business.
Sure.
And now I think America is finally, and it was HBO that really changed everything. HBO, to me, once they started doing their original films, there became this crossover. It's not TV, it's HBO, but it actually is TV. But it's really cool. And they were putting money into projects and casting people who weren't huge movie stars in movies of significance. And they were taking scripts that studios wouldn't buy, and they would make them into movies. And they were really fucking good. And I think that changed the landscape. And that's why we have what we have now, which I think is a much healthier landscape.
But it seems like you were always sort of like moving back and forth between all of them as well.
Yeah, because I had to work. I had to make money. And also, I wasn't a leading man. I was an actor.
Were you ever disappointed about that?
Yeah. I mean, I'd give anything to look like Marcello Mastroianni, but, that's never going to happen. I'd love to look like Ryan Reynolds. That's not happening.
Yeah. You just had to accept. You had to accept.
You have to make do with what you have.
Murder One was sort of a big deal, right?
Yeah, that was a big deal. Yeah.
That put you on the map?
In some ways, yes, I guess. Yeah, it did. I did it because I thought it was really cool. But, of course, you never knew what was going to happen. It was a very unusual structure. It's a structure that we know now very well. But what Stephen did at the time, people were like, we love the show, but nobody watched it. But it coincided with me doing Big Night, and the two of them sort of came out at the same time, and it was it did shift things significantly for me. But then, like show business is, it goes like this. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's good that you take that in. You've worked with a lot of great directors. I have. I've been very lucky. I mean, when you look at, like, even working with Alan Pakula on in the Pelican Brief. Pelican Brief, like that was it. Yeah, I was so excited to work with him because he made some of these iconic films that I grew up with. I think particularly All the President's Men. Well, it's still arguably one of the greatest American movies ever made. Oh yeah, it's great. And Parallax View, I think he did too. Right? Yeah, he did. Extraordinary. And I got to know Redford through Sundance, and I used to go and advise at the lab and everything, and and I told him, like, that is. It's just one, and he produced the movie too. Yeah, and it's one of the greatest movies ever made, and it still holds up.
and I watch it.
Yeah.
I watch it all the time.
I watched it recently, too. It's great.
It's extraordinary. Those shots, I mean, he has that shot with Redford where he's talking on the phone, and the camera pushes in. And I timed it once. It's a 5.5 to 6 minute shot. And
really?
Yeah. And you don't even... The brilliance of Alan Pakula was you had no idea that the camera was even moving. And it was Gordon Willis, I think, who shot it. So the camera's just pushing in. Before you know it, all the guy's doing is talking on the fucking telephone.
Right.
And it is so compelling. And then it's over, and you realize that's a solid 6 minutes that you've watched.
Right.
And you end up here from, way back here. So cool.
Yeah. I thought that the movie that you were in, and you were great in, that Spotlight movie, which I watched again recently.
I love that movie.
Well, that's a similar type of movie.
Yeah.
Because it's one of these things where you're unfolding, an insidious conspiracy, and the action is really about the characters, the learning of, the unfolding, right? Like it's not an action movie, but your character was so great. That was such a great role for you.
I was so honored to be asked to do it. I love Tom McCarthy.
Yeah.
I think he's so talented, and I knew him a little bit. And when he asked me and I read it, I thought, oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
And no, that's one of those movies where you're like, you'll do whatever you can to do it. They don't even have to pay you. It doesn't matter. Yeah. Just do it. Whatever. Just do it.
Yeah. And that part was so great. The kind of aggravation and the sort of acceptance of the plodding work.
Yeah.
Of a guy, who is up against all odds, but continues on.
And he's still at it. He's still doing it.
What's his name? Is the real guy?
Mitchell Garabedian. And I did not meet him before because it was suggested that I not meet him.
Why?
Because he's quite contentious. And at one point, they were like, we think he might sue us. We don't know what's happening.
Oh.
And I was like, well, why would he do that? He's basically like the hero of the film in a way. And then he saw the movie and he loved it. And I met him briefly at the premiere, and he was so nice. And then we talked on the phone a couple times, and he's really. But that's an extraordinary person who does stuff that.
That's so interesting that he didn't trust.
No.
No,
and that's
why would he?
But why would he? Why would you? Why would you trust Hollywood?
Right.
I don't.
Yeah. Yeah. So you weren't concerned in that part, like your version of him was your version.
Yeah, I did what I could to. Yeah, what I did was I was able to find some stuff on YouTube of him talking and news reports and things like that. So I was able to use that, and then, but not. It's always hard too if you're doing an accent. Any kind of accent, but a Boston accent,
That's tricky.
Yeah, it's tricky, and you don't want to go too far, so I tried to just pull it back a little bit, because sometimes if you do it, even people who have Boston accents, you go, come on, pull it back.
Yeah,
come on, it's too much.
Take it easy.
Don't do that. Matt Damon, stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it.
Yeah. When do you work with a dialect coach generally?
Yeah, if I feel that that I need it, yes. I tried to do one thing. I did a thing here a year after I moved here called Fortitude, which was this series for Sky Atlantic. And it was really interesting. And I did it because it was a wonderful role, but also there was Sophie Grabol, who's that great Danish actress, and Michael Gambon, arguably like one of my favorite actors ever.
Yeah.
So I was like, yes. And the character was written as Scottish. So I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. So I asked this dialect coach to come in, whom I think I had met briefly, but she's brilliant. And we had friends in common, and my sister-in-law had worked with her, and blah, blah, blah. So she comes over to my house, we start to read through it. We work for 20 minutes, and I go, "This is a terrible idea, isn't it?" She goes, "Oh yeah, oh yeah." I said, "Okay." So then I have to call the producers and go, "I think, look, I tried this. I'm sorry. I don't want to compromise the show or my career. So I think maybe let's just do British." And then I couldn't figure out what kind of British to do. So I was like, "You know what? I think he's American." And they went, "Yes, I think that's fine."
Thank God.
Thank
They're
God.
Thank God. Celebrating at the producer's office.
Actually, why did we come to this guy in the first place?
Yeah, dialects are scary, man.
Yeah, scary. And some of them, it's fine. Some of them, it's easy. And others, I remember Matt Damon saying that when he did Invictus, that it was one of the hardest dialects. He said he worked for 6 months or more.
Was that with South African?
Yes, which is incredibly... I find stuff like that incredibly difficult. Australian. Someone suggested in a movie that they were like, "Could you be Australian?" I was like, "No."
Why?
No.
Get an
if I were born Australian, but no.
What's the most challenging one you think you pulled off?
Oddly enough, a lot of times an Italian accent is hard. Yeah. Because Italian, there's a lot of variations within it, because Italian has so many different dialects and pronunciations of words and things like that. So there are times, even when I hear my own Italian accent, I go, "Oh, no.
No good.
It's a bad.
It's a
bad.
Yeah. How do you feel about doing stage work? Do you? It doesn't seem like you do a ton of it, but you enjoy it?
Yeah, I haven't done it since I directed a play about 10 years ago, 9 years ago on Broadway. That I loved that experience. Prior to that, I had done a lot of theater, but the last play I did was Frankie and Johnny and the Clair de Lune, and it just about killed me in every way. And
really?
And after that, I didn't have a great. I was, there were too many reasons why it almost killed me. But I no longer longed to go on stage like I once did after that. And it's strange because I've been very lucky enough to be offered a lot of great roles here in England and in America, but I don't have that yearning as much as I used to.
What makes it challenging?
Well, I think if I can do a short run, that's fine. Yeah. But I feel like after you've done a play, you've rehearsed a play, you open up, you do like 5 weeks. After 5 weeks, I think you want to leave a play on an inhale.
Yeah.
And I always see actors leave plays on an exhausted exhale. And I can see that in performances often.
Sure.
And
I mean, I can't imagine doing it every day, matinee on Sunday.
No, you're talking about 8 shows a week, and it's brutal. It's brutal, and people think, "Oh, you only work 3 hours a night or whatever, 2 hours a night." You start by 3:00 in the afternoon. Your mind is going to your performance. Right. And you go, by the time you go to sleep, it's 1:00 in the morning. You have to sleep until 10. Otherwise you got to work out or whatever. Right. And then do your business and see your kids and do whatever. But the thing is, you never see your kids. You don't have dinner with them. You can't pick them up at school. You can't, put them to bed. And you cannot wake up with them in the morning.
So it just eats your entire life.
Yeah, and people think, it's the most sort of regular lifestyle. It's like, it's the opposite of a normal lifestyle. Almost more than film.
Oh, no,
much more than film.
But with film, most of the time you're sitting around waiting for lighting.
Oh, please.
And then, you don't have, once you get the hang of it, I don't know what your process is, but, you kind of memorize, scene for scene or day by day. I mean, with a play, you got to cram all that